Well, my friends, it's like how the new HellDivers 2 trailer, and you're seeing it right now, alludes to freedom. What is the price of freedom? Well, we know the price of freedom or freely enjoying PlayStation has just went up significantly, as PlayStation has announced that HellDivers 2 is now going to Xbox. Now, if you follow my content or if you've seen my post where I told you it's about to get ugly here as far as what I got to say about PlayStation, you know I'm not happy about this. And you know many people aren't happy about this. Shout out to Porter Rock and his peoples over there on 60 Minutes or 60 Frames No Lag podcast, who's just, you know, putting it out there and putting the truth out there and putting the facts out there. This is an attempt for me to explain my displeasure and why I don't like this move, why I think it's not just a bad one, a horrible one, and a one that's going to be a detriment for gamers from here on out, as I mobilize the hashtag end of an era. Let me show you some of these tweets that I've put out here that extrapolates this. I say, well, end of an era. You know, eventually everything will be everywhere, especially on PC day and date. So I asked at PlayStation, why would I get a PlayStation 6 versus just souping up my PC, which equals 70% instead of 100% gain on your first party and none of my third party transactions. Hashtag won't be me. And then lastly, I tried to warn everyone about Hiroki Totoki. This is after Porter Rock says Hiroki Totoki is PlayStation's version of Phil Spencer. And I also say nobody was listening. They weren't. Everybody thought it was just Herman Hulse. I said no. Guy in charge is the one that's the problem. Lastly, I say I keep the same energy. Fire Nishino, Holst, and Totoki, or watch the PlayStation business crumble. Do with that what you will. What's up, people? It's your boy MM2K of Hard Knock Digital Culture, Cloud Dosage, MM2K Gaming, back again with another episode of The Dose on YouTube. This is where we talk about the latest and greatest in the video game news sphere. And man, oh man, oh man, do I have some stuff for you today. But to do us a huge favor before we get into this one, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, rock those bells for notifications, please, so you know when we're dropping these doses. Okay. So to explain those tweets, I want to do this. I want to address three things that I'm seeing on the internet, things that I'm seeing all over Twitter, where I think people got this wrong, because there's a lot of PlayStation fans and faithful that are like, this is not a big deal. And I just got to say to you guys, we can't do this with Xbox, where we become Nostradamuses, where we could say, see, Phil Spencer's chewing his gum on the left side of his mouth. That means that Xbox won't be around by fiscal summer 2026. We can't do stuff like that. But then when the writing is on the wall for PlayStation, we ignore it and say, oh no, I gotta see more. We can't do that. That makes us look like hypocrites. And I'm not a hypocrite. So again, here goes my disclaimer. If you're here because you simply like me attacking Phil Spencer on Xbox, you've come here for the wrong reasons. I hope you got what you were looking for while the time was there, but you're going to see a lot less of me talking about Xbox, because Xbox is done. It's finite. It's over. It's not even worth talking about them. I told you guys to be careful about Hiroki Totoki, Holst, and I'm surprised even Nishino now. I didn't have Nishino on my radar, but Nishino as well. But again, he got to do Totoki's bidding. But I tried to warn you guys about Hiroki Totoki first and foremost, because he does not respect gaming culture. Because he doesn't respect gaming culture, I told you guys stuff like this was going to happen. I told you, go back through the channel when I started putting Totoki on the thumbnails and listen. Well, it's too late now because it's going to happen. It's the end of an era. Okay, but we cannot do that same hypocritical stuff then. And that's why I want to say shout out to Porter Rock and everybody that he's rocking with, that agrees with him, that understands what's coming down the pike. Okay, now to explain my position before we have a bigger discussion, because we will, I got to get my brother Cold Blood on here. We might invite some other people to talk about this or whatever, but I want to at least explain my position before we have that big show. Okay. So we're going to talk about three things. First, let me address the people that are looking at me and others that don't like this, that are fans of PlayStation, and they're looking at us and they're saying, you're just being a fanboy. You're just upset that you can't talk stuff on Xbox anymore, or you can't talk stuff on Twitter anymore. And that's why you're upset about this. And this is where your idiocy shines through. When it comes to me in particular, I came into this game talking about how I was advocating for gaming, AAA genre defining gaming, and for it to get better. And the things that I felt like would be a detriment to it, I was going to speak up about, and speak up about fiercely. That's just who I am. I don't like something, I'm very vocal about it. Now, I came into this game propping up Xbox. So I'm not one of these people that feel like I got to belong to a community or, do all this other stuff. And I got to prop up a flag or whatever. I didn't get jumped into a gang. All right. I walk my own path. In the height of my stint here on YouTube, podcasting with some of your favorite podcasters, having them tell me behind the scenes, you know what? I watch your show all the time. I love your show. And at the height of our content here, I went through a monkey wrench in all those accolades. I went to go cover Stadia and talk about Stadia. People were sitting there with their mouths open like, why the hell would you do that? Because I go where I want to go based upon what I like at that moment. And what keeps me there is if the company A is doing things that I feel like are a benefit to gaming, and then as I stay there, I'm vocal about whether I feel like that their actions are leading to solvency. I may like what you're doing, but if you're not making good business decisions, because I got decades of experience in Fortune 500 business, then you're going to hear my ire on that, whether I like you or not. That's why I've been very critical of PlayStation, even before Nishino, even though it was like, I felt like it was definitely the best console out there. And then right before all this mess started happening, I was like, really? It's now with the PlayStation 5 Pro, it's my favorite place to play, right? So for those that are trying to throw that label on me, go suck an egg. Go fly a kite into a thunderstorm. I'm not trying to hear that trash. You just have low brain activity and you don't know how to separate the forest from the trees. Anyway, let's continue on. The bigger reason why I have a problem with this move is simply this. Look at why this is bad. You got to look down what this means for the future. And secondly, we got an example of how a move like this is bad. Look at the Xbox Series X. The Xbox Series X is testament on why a move like this is so bad. How was that? The Xbox Series X, for all intents and purposes, should be molly-whopping the snot out of PlayStation as far as performance. It should be. On paper, it is significantly more powerful than PlayStation. It should be molly-whopping the PlayStation, right? Why isn't it? Because Xbox's approach to developing games was like, we want to be anywhere and everywhere day one. We have to be. Anywhere and everywhere we can be day one, let's do it. Parallel development. When your focus is on parallel development and you have deadlines with that parallel development, it's going to take you time before you can perfect the game all the way around because you're spread a lot thinner, right? Having to release on PC, having to work on the potato Series S or whatever. The most powerful console on paper was releasing first-party games at only 30 frames per second. You only do that when by the deadline established that you cannot push back any further, you were not able to optimize your game, because you got to put it everywhere. You don't just flip a button and then the ports, the parallel ports are made everywhere. No, you got to have dedicated teams, and you got to have time specific to each platform that it comes to. That's a drag on resources. But when you develop for a single platform, or a platform at a time, your resources don't get drained. And you get a better product than what you would have had if you didn't have multiple parallel projects. That's why PlayStation games year after year, Nintendo games year after year are rated amongst the best games out there. Their games flood the games of the year conversation. They only have to develop for one console at a time. Their first party does. When you start changing that dynamic, where now you're worrying about either day one or even some point during your development cycle. Oh, now I got to develop for another console, another closed platform, and all of its quirks. That complicates things. That makes things even worse. That's why the Series X is underperforming. The Series X should be mopping the PlayStation 5. But because Xbox is focused on parallel development, and they don't just focus on their machines or their most powerful setup first, which is the Series X setup. They got to worry about the potato Series S, and then they got to go on PC and worry about, okay, we're going to perform for these minimum specs and all that other stuff. That runs them thin. Why do you think you see so many third-party games run like crap across the board, where they got like 90 gig day one patches? It's parallel development. Now, I know some of you are thinking, well, Moss, there's been some games that come on PlayStation that they're not the best. You know what I'm saying? They're not, and they would be even worse if they were multi-plat day one. Listen to the words that I'm saying. The games are best when they have to worry about fewer platforms day one, or really at all. But if after the sun is set, you get somebody else to work on a port or whatever, that's fine. Whatever. That being said, this is a new precedent. They are taking first party owned IP, which is HellDivers. They're using a first party studio, which is Nixxes, to bring it to Xbox, a rival platform. And this is their best performing multiplayer game, that if I was interested in playing HellDivers 2 and I did want to do it on a console, I could very easily give me a $399 PlayStation and play HellDivers there too. The hell, you can get a PlayStation Now, I still believe, for $379 USD and get Call of Duty with it. And we know that the Xbox brass, they're Game Pass gamers on the series, particularly on the series. They're Game Pass gamers. They're not buying this in volume, I feel, that will justify the port. It's wasting, and particularly with this game, is wasting resources when the developers already said that they're being spread too thin, just developing on PC and PlayStation. It absolutely makes no sense. And it's just PlayStation following a failed path that Xbox already went through. And I'll say this. I'm sorry, forget the guy's name that I'm having a brain fart right now that's on Porter Rock's podcast, but he put it perfectly, right? He said this is his last PlayStation. And yeah, the PlayStation 5 Pro is my last PlayStation. Here's why. When I saw Xbox going through this same situation, the Xbox One X was my last console. When the PlayStation 5 came out, I traded it in for the PlayStation 5 and never looked back. I can't be a man of my word and a man of integrity, I feel, in speaking about this, or a gamer of integrity, right? I can't be that if I'm being hypocritical. And trust me, this is not a struggle, because I don't wave a flag for anybody. This is because I just don't like this situation. I don't like this situation at all. And the PlayStation 5 Pro is my last console. If you're going to start developing games on rival consoles and spread yourself thin, you know what I'm saying, and not make the PlayStation 5 or the PlayStation in general be, if you water down the attractiveness of your hardware by putting your IP everywhere, you lose incentive to keep performing at the level that you do, because you're doing parallel development. Now it's instead of it being about, hey, we're going to use our IP to drive you to our marketplace, it now becomes, hey, we're worried about selling the most of our IP as possible. When that overrides you making your console as illustrious as possible, I am not going to spend hundreds of dollars on it, because what's the point? I don't need a $400 multimedia device or a $700, because I have a Pro. I don't need a $700 multimedia device. I don't stick my genitalia on my PlayStation. Oh, I love you. I don't do that. It's just a gaming console for me. So if you're peeling away the illustriousness of it, I'll use that money to soup up my PC. It's stupid. You had a winning formula. It has nothing to do with Twitter or even YouTube. I don't care. I love you guys that support our platform, but newsflash, I have a life outside of this. I don't care about your opinions. When I post something, it's because I'm simply expressing myself. It's not because I'm looking for approval. It's not about, oh, you can't have a conversation on Twitter. I can have a conversation about gaming all day. You guys know I love to run my mouth. This is about me voicing and expressing my opinion on my displeasure with this. And I am displeased because I see it coming. You're going to water down and take away the illustriousness of why I would even want to buy this box. Because if you're moving closer and closer to putting your games elsewhere and day on competing hardware, not just PC, but competing hardware, what's the point? I buy a PlayStation because I love how they make games, how they're focused on making games on PlayStation first and foremost, and how they make the box sing, as we say, you know, by making it perform so well. If you change your motivations from why you develop your first party from that to bring people to your box and your marketplace to selling games on other hardware, when that becomes the MO of your first party, then you turn into Xbox and you will see the same results that Xbox does. And as Xbox sees these results and they cannot turn off the faucet, they just keep digging themselves worse and worse in the hole. You're just becoming Xbox Part 2 when you don't have to. I'm not buying any more hardware. I'll just get a PC. When your games come to PC, I'll play them there. They'll be inferior, just like they'll end up inferior on the console, because you're gonna eventually go to parallel development. And the next part is for those of you that are saying, but Moz, it's only one game and it's a multiplayer game. This is coming from the same era of PlayStation that said, where Jim Ryan said, we're all about generations. And I get it. When you look at what he was saying in context, it's not exactly what people thought he meant. but he said it in a way to confuse people. Like, yes, technically, when you research what he says, he wasn't talking about we believe in generation, so these new PlayStation games were only going to be available on PlayStation 5. But his phraseology was in such a way that he knew the thought process that he was going to exude when he said it that way. Who does that remind you of? Phil Spencer. So PlayStation, for some reason, has been wanting to emulate the failures of Xbox for a while now. They're now talking about we care more about MAUs. They're switching up their stance on games and now coming up with these different categories to try to pull the wool over our eyes. It's the same crap that Xbox did with its people. And again, I'd be damned if I sit there and criticize Xbox for doing just that, watching the end result of it, and then I go through it all over again with PlayStation. No, I got my PlayStation 5 Pro. That's all PlayStation is getting from me. When it's time for the PlayStation 6, I'll either keep my Pro or sell it and continue to soup up my PC. That's it. Or if another console comes out from another competitor or whatever to bring us out of this hellhole, I might invest into them. Okay, so for those of you that believe, oh, it's just one game, and please don't use Bungie as an example with Marathon and Destiny. When Bungie was absorbed, the agreement said before, they got sucked into SIE, the agreement was we're going to operate the same way we did before you guys bought us. And Sony was fine with that because they had Bungie's expertise in live service, because for the SIE part, for the SIE studios that were jumping into live service, they tried to tap Bungie's expertise to learn how to make better live service games. And we see how that went. I mean, don't get me wrong. I really feel like Bungie has a wealth of knowledge, but I always question at the beginning. I remember having this conversation with Cold Blood. It's smart to rope in Bungie for that, but it's a double-edged sword to just start listening to them off the bat, right? I do think they gave valuable advice to Naughty Dog for Factions, because I'd rather than work on Intergalactic and other single-player IPs and become a multiplayer studio trying to support Factions 2. I'd rather them do that. Factions not what brought me to PlayStation. It was Last of Us. You know what I'm saying? That was part of that move. Yes, but the other thing is that Bungie is thinking, what if these other multiplayer games are successful? How is that going to affect Destiny? So was their advice always in the best interest of those games, right? And maybe PlayStation realized that. And that's why they had to cancel the games, because maybe they were moving too fast in the direction from Bungie, and Bungie was setting them down the wrong path. They were sabotaging the I don't know. But Bungie was working independently, but Bungie was purely a multi-platform developer. You got to remember that the Bungie purchase was made during the whole Activision Blizzard thing. So to also keep heat off of themselves, along with Bungie, allowing Bungie to do what they normally do, the last thing PlayStation wanted to do was to try to make Bungie independent, or exclusive, when they're crying about Call of Duty being exclusive. You guys can't have short-term memories about this. Again, using Bungie makes no sense. It's null and void, because the only reason why that Bungie is still making Xbox games is A, that was part of the negotiation with Bungie. Wasn't a desire by Sony for them to do that. It was a desire of Bungie to say, hey, we want to continue doing that. And Sony said, yeah, we want your expertise, and we just want you under the umbrella of Sony developers. Come on in. So really Bungie at first was just parallel to SIE and just doing their own thing, right? They were just property of Sony, and that changed when everything went to hell in a handbasket. But secondly, and more importantly, the only reason why Sony was extra comfortable with letting them still make games for Xbox is because of the Activision Blizzard trial, where you're sitting there whining and complaining about Call of Duty being exclusive. Now you're going to make Destiny exclusive or anything that Bungie makes exclusive? No, of course not. They're not going to do that. Stop being so damn forgetful. Okay? But with that said, it's not the same. You have SIE, first party owned IP. SIE, first party owned studio. Like before Bungie got, I mean, this is, yes, Bungie is now, it looks like Bungie is now part of SIE officially all the way through. But again, that was negotiated beforehand. Never before did you have a legacy PlayStation studio, legacy PlayStation IP show up on Xbox. Now that's how, now they broke down that fourth wall. The company they've been kicking and scratching and clawing against all this time, they broke down that fourth wall and now they're putting it over there. Come on now. We can't be that slow. It's the games, more games are coming to Xbox from PlayStation. And eventually they're going to be day and date. Again, same company that told you and knew what they were saying the way they said it. We believe in generations. Now they're sitting there talking about, oh, we believe in MAUs. And now they done gave us this master list of, oh, these types of games. Well, these are the games that are going to, you know, only be here and be there and be there. Look, HellDivers breaks that mold. HellDivers 2 breaks that mold. Now they got to reconfigure the list and make something. Now HellDivers 2 is experimental. Now you're putting games on Xbox? Stop it. And you can't use Bungie or Marathon as a crutch. Totally different scenario. But let me get to the last thing. So for those of you that are PlayStation jock sniffers, and you're like, well, you know what, Moss, this doesn't matter because even if they do it, they're going to come first, PlayStation, and they're going to be best on PlayStation. I got land to sell you if you believe that crap. Isn't that the same garbage that we heard from Xbox about the Bethesda games before they made Starfield exclusive? And by the way, Starfield still isn't on PlayStation. It doesn't. I'm not saying it's not coming, but it still hasn't been announced yet. I'm not saying that you guys missed out on anything. Trust me, after 30 hours, but it's just the fact of the matter and how it affected the brand. Oh, we just want Bethesda games to be first, better, or best, right? Again, Hiroki Totoki, who does not understand the culture of gaming, is walking down the same path as Phil Spencer, as and Satya Nadella, as Porter Rock alludes. These games will no longer be best on PlayStation. Why? It's like what I said in the first point. PlayStation IP is being used, or originally was used, to draw you to the console. So what they would do is they knew they ran at a 60% failure rate. Now, what am I talking about? Let me see if I can find the article. I might not be able to find it. Hold on. What's that, Yoshida? Yeah, here it goes. So I found it. So this was the PlayStation blueprint. Let me move this so you guys can see this temporarily. This was the PlayStation blueprint before Hiroki Totoki took over. Shuhei Yoshida, only 4 out of 10 PlayStation games make money, but Sony will always support talent. This has been their blueprint since at least 2014, when head of studios, Worldwide Studios at the time, Shuhei Yoshida, spoke about this. I'm in Barcelona at Game Lab. Here's what he said. He says, when you look, okay, well, let me just read this. Sony Computer Entertainment has been known to publish quite a few games that haven't exactly been financial breakthroughs. This is in 2014. So we've been hearing about, oh, the Sony PlayStation games suck, and they're not all selling well. This has been something that haters have been complaining about since 2014. Well, listen to Shuhei breaking this down. It says they haven't exactly been financial breakthroughs, yet they don't seem to be about to give up on that kind of experience, as explained by Worldwide Studios president Shuhei Yoshida during his panel at Game Lab in Barcelona a few days ago. Listen to what Shuhei is saying. When you look at what we do, managing studios and managing funds, that's essentially what we do, to look for talent and support talent, because at the end of the day, it's the people that create amazing things, and it's the creative team that makes breakthroughs. Now, here's where it really starts getting juicy. And this is where you get to the heart and center of why PlayStation uses its IP, more importantly, to bring you to its console and its marketplace versus just selling a whole bunch of games. It's a hit-driven business. We look at our financial results of the titles, and probably 3 or 4 out of 10 make money. So if 4 are making money out of 10, that means 6 or 60% don't make money. And maybe 1 or 2 make all of the money to cover all the costs of the other titles. So only 40% of the games actually get out of the red and make money, but because they do what they said in the first paragraph, they're looking for talent. They really have a high quality ceiling and threshold. Because they find talent and they cultivate talent, 2 out of those 4 successful games actually make enough money to support and justify the other 8 games, the other 2 successful ones, and the 6 failures. It was a successful model for PlayStation. Let's continue. So we've been able to maintain that hit ratio at a certain level. So we have to be able to maintain that to continue in the business. So we always try to find and support and help grow the talent. That's the most important thing I believe myself and some of my management team at Worldwide Studios are doing. So another, if I can find it, I do, because it's in part of my notes. Another thing that I want to make you guys aware of is that even though we've had stinkers, like Concord and stuff like that on PlayStation as of late, when you look at the 10 games and 10 games, every single 10 set of exclusives have surpassed that threshold. Yes, I know they had games that they canceled or games that didn't do well. You know, Concord comes to mind, Destruction All-Stars comes to mind, or whatever. But when you look at the totality of exclusives this generation, let me see here. If I can find the doc, I can actually lay them out for you. Let's see here. No, that's not it. What is something? Jim, Ryan. This, I think this is it. No, that's not it. Crap. I have a list of all the chain of events that happen. Oh, here it goes. Here it goes right here. All right. Is this it? No, crap, I don't have it. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. There is when you look at the list of games this generation, there are games that did not do well for PlayStation, but the majority of them did what they needed to do for PlayStation. And the proof is in the pudding. PlayStation fiscal year, I believe it was 2023 fiscal year, they sold the most consoles than they ever have. That doesn't happen unless you have games that are drawing people to your console. And why do we know that was successful? Because PlayStation is making more revenue and profit than they ever had. Here's the problem. You got Hiroki Totoki in there that says, oh, we can do more. I feel like we can do more. And what he's doing is he's messing up the balance, that integral balance. He's messing up the balance of, look, let's just find art. Let's maintain that hit ratio of 40% success rate in cultivating that 20% that'll pay for everything. Let's just operate that off of that, and let's just spread that amongst more gamers. And had they just continue to cannibalize Xbox gamers, continue to bring in more PC gamers, and more importantly, continue with projects like China Joy, and we heard that they're trying to spread in Africa. Had they just done that, they would have been fine, because they would have kept the quality of life that made the console so much worth it without sacrificing it, getting into parallel development and messing with the thing that brought me to its console and its games. If you're going to do parallel development, simply put, if you're going to do parallel development and you're going to bring your game everywhere, that not only diminishes the quality of my desire to have your console, but I know it's going to affect the quality of the game. Look no further than the Xbox Series X. Again, should be molly-whopping PlayStation, but because they're so focused on putting everything everywhere, the box doesn't get utilized, and we get told, oh, it's the tools, it's the tools. No, it's the fools. It's the fools. And Hiroki Totoki wants to follow that same foolish leadership because he's a money guy. And he's like, oh, well, we're missing untapped revenue here. No. Your untapped revenue was in China, possibly in Africa, cannibalizing Xbox people, trying to bring over some more PC people. That's where your growth is. Trying to use your IP as growth and putting it everywhere is a fool errand, because it's integral. You're pulling one of the legs from the chair and saying, oh, maybe I can use this to serve the food. Meanwhile, the person you're having dinner with falls. Right? You're pulling the leg from under their chair. They fall, they leave. Dinner is pointless now. But Hiroki Totoki is not attached to the culture. You can tell just from his opening statement, where I criticized him and said he should not be making said speeches like this, especially in English, because even if he is being misinterpreted because of the translation, he should know better. He should know the culture. His predecessors did, and he just doesn't get the culture. So that is my problem with this move. It's not about being a fanboy. It's about understanding that, hey, PlayStation is going to lose incentive in creating the reasons for me to buy this console. They're going to lose that incentive. The PlayStation console is worth nothing more to me than playing games. Why would I spend $400 on something that's completely lost its value? I mean, as much as I love the DualShock controller, I'll just buy it to play my PC games. That's $80 versus, you know what I'm saying? It's not about, it's just being one game. We're seeing the shifting in what they do versus what they tell us. We've been seeing that with PlayStation. They're mimicking Xbox with that. And lastly, if you believe that this trend is going to continue, that it's just about live service, I got some land to sell you. They've broke the fourth wall and put everything on Xbox. And look, even though Xbox, as we know it, is dead and gone, it doesn't matter. The fact that you want to release this in a way that completely goes against your business model, you being competitive, and you ensuring that you give every incentive to everybody to come over to PlayStation, and you do that by ensuring you do the most quality. Now you're looking at it as like, well, you know, we killed Xbox, so why should we continue to kill ourselves to give you quality? Let's put the games on Xbox. That is a direct signal to me that you stepping away from your quality narrative. And if you're going to step away from your quality narrative, why would I spend hundreds of dollars on a box that I just game on if I'm going to get the same quality somewhere else and potentially get it around the same time? That's stupid. And no, this is not just a bash Xbox channel. This is a bash idiotic gaming decisions channel. Xbox got the ire, but they're pretty much done. They're beaten to the concrete. So again, if you're a PlayStation enthusiast and you want to make excuses for this and you can't stand to hear criticisms, factual criticisms, this may not be the channel for you. I'm not here for clicks. All right. I'm here to preserve the culture. With that said, that's it from your boy. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below, because like I always say, who cares what I think? But if you did like what I had to say, check out the links below to follow me. They will lead you to Hard Knock Digital Culture, Cloud Dosage, MM2K Gaming. With that said, peace. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful gaming day, and stay tuned for our special in a row podcast where me, Cold Blood, and whoever else wants to hop on or whatever, we could talk about this. With that said, you have a wonderful gaming day. Peace.